Warning. The following may contain concepts, ideas, and/or reflections unique in nature and not yet approved by government and/or corporate entities. This content is for entertainment purposes only and is not intended to stimulate further reflection or to perpetuate additional discourse beyond the scope already outlined by institutional curriculum.
All right, let's just see.
Let's just see.
Can it handle a few seconds of data without shit in the bed? I'm a MacBook Pro, but I'm really fucking stupid. I can't do a damn fucking thing. Look at me go, my circuitry so small it will shit the bed occasionally. Boo. I'm a brand new CPU. Okay, it looks like it's working, so we'll see.
Fine.
Maybe we'll get halfway and I'll fucking crap the bed again. Okay. I think we start.
Okay. Today's topic is on a very, 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 very serious note.
Well, it's heavy, man.
Heavy metal. We're talking gold and silver.
Man, you love your heavy metal.
I do like my precious metal.
Whoa.
I'm not
too much information, man. Too much information.
Not too much into the lead, although I like to get the lead out every once in a while. But I'm not going to do that online. Hey, Mom, I said the way you... No.
Okay. Anyways, I think we started out very serious. And so people know, hey, these are some guys to listen to. They got some golden tidbits. They got some golden tidbits.
A little bling.
So let's just discuss what's happening in geopolitics. Forget everything we just said, all the silliness. We're going to talk about geopolitics, and we're going to talk about the state of silver and gold, how it's been, increasing in recent days, and what's going to happen in the future. So let's cue that intro, and we'll jump right into it. Wow.
Whoa.
Oh, man. Holy crap.
That
I can't
was a
believe.
big dive into this.
Jeez. Here we are. We've made it to the other side of that intro. That was intense.
It really was.
Boy. I mean, that was expertly put together. But anyways, I digress. The point is that we've got gold and silver just increasing like crazy. So what's happening?
It's making me giddy.
Why is
I don't even know anything.
No, but why but why is this happening now? Why didn't this happen before? Some people might say, debt's reached a certain level now and bullshit. Okay? Because there's mechanisms in place for them to suppress the price of precious metals, and they've been doing it for decades, basically.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like, if you take where gold and silver was at the turn of the 20th century, it's definitely been suppressed from that point, and its purchasing power is suppressed. Everything, by every metric, it has been suppressed.
Well,
right?
I mean, you would always see a rise and a fall. Usually it starts on the low side on a Monday and starts peaking on a Friday, but you could even have dips and rises. But this is all in gold futures. Paper futures, you don't really have to pay a broker a spread. If you do, it's really not that much. So you got all these scammers just trying to capitalize off of precious metals.
Well, you also got gold futures and all that stuff. So
that's what I mean.
Yeah,
it's a paper market.
You can flood the market with like a gold futures that ends up suppressing the price of the physical object. I remember actually anecdotally, I remember when I was looking to purchase some silver, and the price had like gone down, and it was like, well, that's kind of crazy. Like, why is the price going down? So I wanted to buy some, but all of the Canadian like outlets like Kitco and Border Gold and Vancouver Bullion
And currency exchange.
I'm not sure what other major ones, but those are kind of like the three major
biggies.
ones in Canada. And all of them were like either unavailable or the price was way above the spot price. And you go, well, I'm sorry, but how is that the market determining if the spot price is not being utilized, right? Obviously, the demand is greater, but this is the thing. Once you link a metal to the stock market and you got gold and futures, they can suppress it. But what's happening now? Why is it going up? Well, I believe that it's directly related to this conflict with Russia and geopolitical tensions that is exploding.
It's the dynamic of the pigs nation, or not the pigs nation. What do you call that?
BRICS?
BRICS.
Yeah.
Not the pigs, but the BRICS. So you got the China, India, and Russia conglomerate, and getting away from what was that payment method?
The SWIFT payment system.
Yeah, so the SWIFT payment system, where they're peddling American debt, and with debt inflation, and most countries can't handle that anymore. They're up to their eyeballs in inflation.
But also, like, for decades, a lot of countries have known that the States is getting a good deal with being the de facto trading currency, right? But now that there's like this kind of, I would say, a lukewarm war going on, I wouldn't call it a Cold War, because it's kind of,
the temperature could definitely be turned up.
Well, I think the thing is, like, even in the Cold War, I don't think that they would be using satellite intel, in like Vietnam or something. If they found out that, like, if the States found out that Russia was using its like satellite array to help the Viet Cong, I don't know if that would be considered a Cold War anymore. I mean, they were considering a Cold War just because AK-47s were getting in the hands magically of the Viet Cong. And, but there was a plausible deniability with the Russians where they could say, well, we don't know. It's possibly it's problem with logistics. We sell many guns on global market. Maybe it's not us. Maybe someone else. If you looked at China, we can't control what these people do, So there was, because they had that plausible deniability, it was a Cold War. However, this one feels a lot more, like I said, lukewarm war, which is, it's on the cusp of potentially going into a hot war, but we can't say that it's cold because there's way more skirting around.
Yeah, okay, but wars aside, and they're definitely very serious, there is also another factoid.
Well, hit me with it. Don't leave me in suspense, dude.
Can't remember what I was going to say.
Well, it's probably really good.
It'll come back to me, though.
So, do you mind if I go back to war then?
Let me just see if I can put it on search mode here and come up with it. Yeah,
well, you go on search mode. I'll do some talking.
Okay, so I'm on search mode now.
So the thing is that when you have this conflict going on, you no longer, I mean, definitely Russia for sure, but possibly even China and maybe even India are not really incentivized to say, yes, the U.S. can write as many blank checks as it wants and as many debt notes it can spread around the world as it wants. If those debt notes are starting to be utilized in an active combat zone against some belligerents, those belligerents are no longer going to want to play that game. And this is what we're seeing now with kind of like the BRICS nations and everything like this, is that there is definitely a push because, see, gold and silver is neutral, right? Nobody is necessarily in exclusive control over it, or they have a monopoly over it. There's always a bit of a diversification. Debt notes, however, not the same thing. It is a centralized consortium. I mean, if you take the World Bank, the IMF, the Fed,
Right.
they're basically managing, I mean, the global economy for maybe 150 nations around it, right?
Yeah.
So this is, I think, the catalyst. This is why we're seeing metals shooting to the roof, even way more so than when it was the recession, the 2008 or 2007, 2008 recession, where gold took a big bump. But this has been like way more than that even, right?
Yeah. I think they still had things well managed even in that time period.
Well, yeah.
It's just like in 1999 when there was the big Y2K scare, and they thought maybe most of the computers in the world wouldn't be able to make that adaptation to the new millennia. And yet gold and silver were still well below what you would think in times of uncertainty. They should have been significantly higher. And so
Yeah, definitely.
it was obviously manipulation. So
No, but it does take a certain level of, like, the problem is with Russia now is that, you know, there's certain concessions that Russia was maybe getting in the 90s, that in the early 2000s, that would kind of allow them to be like, yeah, okay, we'll play ball. Sure.
Well, I think even
You
China needed. They only entered the World Trade Organization in 1999, so
Yeah.
they definitely needed to go along with the program.
Oh, yeah.
They
and
certainly don't need to do that now.
That bet paid off big time for them, I think.
Yeah.
By taking in all of that intellectual property, all of the manufacturing hub, where, like, basically they went from, in the 1970s, the States had, like, so much manufacturing equipment, so much, like, infrastructure, and then they just kind of yielded that over to China.
Right.
And then the next phase was that now China basically goes, okay, well, we don't really have the cheapest labor now, but we've got all your fucking equipment. So we could probably build it better just because we have all the equipment, and we
They're
got all
building
the
back there
and we got all the intellectual property as well. So
because you gave that to us very nice. Thank
because
you
you
very
gave that
much.
to us, and we don't really have any sort of perjury law or yeah.
But anyways, they don't want to be a part of this fraudulent system anymore.
Well,
It's
they're,
only-
they're fine with being a part of it. They just don't want to be
On the
being
tail?
led. They want to be
wanna
the
be the
leaders
head.
of the system,
Right.
and they're in a position now. And especially, I think all the stars are aligning, right? So you got a conflict that's going on in Ukraine. You also have, like, a national debt crisis reaching critical mass in
Now
the
I know
States.
what I was going to say, because this is the other addition. You also have the threat or the promise of the central bank digital currencies. So you've got this this jostling for who's going to be the premier currency, who's going to be able to dispense it out and control it or contain it.
Yeah.
So you've got the crypto world, which are thinking they're going to be
But
jet
also,
setting across the planet.
I think that we need to circle back to war, because I do think that it is really important, because people need to understand just how important economy is in war, right?
Yeah.
Because if you can cripple your economy, like, let's just say you're able to let the states just print as much money as they want, and they can just funnel as much equipment and as much fiat currency generated inflation into Ukraine. Well, yeah, that's not going to be good for Russia, obviously. So from a strategical standpoint, Russia's going to want to do everything they can to deleverage the US dollar. And that's kind of like a silent war that can be being waged, that, of course, Russia isn't going to admit to, because, you know, there's certain politics that's going on here. But
Right.
at the same time, the economy like if you think about like the hierarchy of the military, it's like in a sense the base of the pyramid is the economy, and through the economy then you get logistics, and with the logistics then you have the supply to your troops, and from the troops that's where you win the war. And so but the base of the pyramid is the economy, and if you don't have an economy or you don't have any way to pay any of your manufacturers for anything, everything else kind of falls apart, right? Like,
Yeah.
So, and this is like a huge weakness of the West that obviously Russia is completely aware of, and other nations that are not like entirely Western aligned are completely aware of the fact that basically all of the West is heavily indebted. Canada is heavily indebted. The U.S. is heavily indebted. England is heavily indebted.
Yeah, it sounds
France
like a poem.
is.
But you know,
Yeah,
like,
but
the thing is though is that
how does this
they're
happen?
indebted to
Like-
such an extent that crunch time happens when their ability to make the service payment on the debt is exceeding their capability of bleeding the public for more taxes.
Well, I believe that we're already at that
Well,
limit, basically.
the
I mean,
States
a
is
trillion.
certainly at it.
No, but like, so yeah. I mean, to a certain extent, but like, even in Canada, I mean, I think it's like, I don't know if it's 80 billion or it's 100 billion to service the debt. But when you consider what their revenue stream is, when you consider that the largest ticket item is social medicine in Canada, and social medicine makes up like 1/3 or something like that of the total, maybe it's two, maybe it's more,
With,
but it's a huge
it's
percentage of the
one-third
one-third of the
basically
budget.
total budget.
And I think that's like $300 billion or something. So spending out $100 billion just in interest payments to private banks is a hell of a lot of money, right? You're basically starting to eat in to your entire infrastructure system, where all you're doing is paying banks. You're not even putting any money into back into the country. So you're just sucking from your workers, and then they're getting nothing in exchange, and it's going into an international banking system where maybe you're going to get to work on a super yacht as your trickle down economics.
Right. You
Or,
get to breathe
you know.
in all that great fiberglass
Yeah.
from sanding some rich prick super yacht.
But probably not, because they'll probably go to a third world
Oh,
country
yeah,
where
yeah.
they're going to pay like
Probably
$2
gets
an
a
hour.
Guatemalans
So
in there to,
I mean,
build
that's
it.
the trickle down. The trickle down is like, people getting paid like maybe $3
So are you
grand a year.
suggesting that we go back to a precious metal based currency?
Well, I think that even though yes, I am a fan of
Personally.
it, I'm saying that it's going to happen regardless, because
Your
there's
sentiment or my sentiment is, or anybody
because there's a level where, I mean, sure, Russia would love to just come out and be like, yeah, we're like the de facto currency now. We're going to just print all the money and everyone's going to trade everything in rubles. Would that be good for them? Yes. Would that profit their country? Would that put them in a better position? Of course.
Wouldn't it seem more
But
likely though
it's-
that China would want to have their currency the premier currency of the world?
Yes, and that's another part of the equation. I just don't think anybody is ready for that, in the sense that like going from one solo nation's currency,
Right.
just printing up, I don't think they're ready for going to just another nation just taking over that mantle, which is where metals comes in.
Right.
Cryptocurrency wants to take that place, and maybe that's the threat. But the problem with cryptocurrency is everything.
Yeah. Well, for one
If
thing,
they
you get
want-
nothing for your investment. Like as something that you can hold in your hand, you cannot hold it in your hand.
Yeah.
Now, some people think, well, it's great if I can conceptualize it in my mind and I can get millions of other people to conceptualize this thing.
Yeah.
But without the use of the internet and its service providers,
Well, this
you
is
have no access.
this is the problem,
And
right?
governments can reach in there and monitor what you're doing. and-
Eventually, because I think what's happened is there's been an incredible amount of trust in the system up to this point, And that trust has kind of guided the way that the economy works. As soon as people start realizing, holy shit, why do I keep getting locked out of my bank account? Why does my card keep not working, right? And eventually they're going to go, you know what? I don't want to trust any system, whether it's a blockchain, crypto, online, or it's something that is a institutional bank. I want to have what I own in my hand where I can use it the way I want to, and I'm not going to be bound by any sort of third party structure.
Right.
And eventually, I think that this is where, especially in the time of crisis. Now, if things wrap up quickly, maybe they go to just a digital currency. That's quite possible. However, as things are looking right now, that is a long way off.
It could be
because
a possibility of both.
But nobody's
bringing back precious metals and, in a sense, having more surveillance and monitoring and biometrics that you need to employ in pretty much every day.
Well, I do think that this is the metals is a consequence of a crisis. And right now there's a crisis building. And, maybe people have a cursory knowledge of what's happening in Ukraine. But, you got to keep in mind that when a general says that we have no game plan for how this is going to end, it isn't going to end. This is one side is going. Okay, maybe the only way that this could end without being fully World War III is that Russia is completely destroyed and completely ground into nothingness, obliterated from the face of the earth. Then in that case, that would be the least amount of damage. But as the rhetoric
sounds like a negative net gain, because even if the West wants the resources of Russia, if it's basically a radioactive zone, it doesn't seem like they're going to really acquire anything there.
It seems like the West's plan is we're going to wage a war of attrition against the one nation that has waged war of attrition better than anybody else.
Right.
That has never actually been successfully ground by just going, okay, we're just going to we're going to pressure you and pressure you and pressure you, and then you're going to surrender, right? We're talking about people that don't do that. Right. They don't surrender. They get more aggressive the more you corner them.
They dig in more.
Deeper. Right? And they're a nation of stoicism, of enduring. They're an enduring people. So when Western fucking dipshit I've never fired a gun in my life, but I went through the academy on the officer side of things, says these people we're going to just wear them down by constantly flooding Ukraine with just the right amount of, equipment for them to do such a thing.
Right.
I mean, it's not going to, that's not going to resolve anything. You're making the situation the worst possible situation you could, right?
Right.
You could say possibly if you blitzed Russia day one, and then try to negotiate for peace after you blitz them with everything you had, then you could say maybe that would have worked. But a war of attrition is if you were tabling the worst possible idea on the table, hey, let's see if we could take a retard and fill his head full of carbon monoxide and then get his opinion on what to do. That would be the decision that I would be expecting, because it's the absolute worst. So where does that leave metals? Well, metals have to go up because it's the only security in a world of uncertainty. When you don't have when you don't know what's going to happen in the geopolitical landscape, because there's chaos and there's belligerent parties that are at work, obviously metals are just the thing that are going to go up. Am I saying that it's going to replace No, possibly when all the dust settles and there's like a stranglehold on the entire planet, they will want to just go back to a global digital currency for everybody to use and try to, stifle the price of precious metals. But as it currently stands, for the next 5 years probably,
right,
it's going to continue to shoot up.
Right. And so what it comes down to is I prefer to hang on to something like this that I could wear around my neck, go through a border if I need to, and not necessarily declare it at all.
Yeah, or the fact that it's kind of like holding something of like a tangible metal in your hand, or holding a bunch of Deutschmarks at the end of the Weimar Republic.
Right.
And so you go, yeah, well, if you believe in the system, sure. But when there's a time of crisis, the economy is the first thing to go.
Right.
Anyways, that's our opinion. We are financial advisors. You have to obey what we say, and you have to invest your entire life savings. And you
give
can
us a nice
you can totally
30% commission for managing your assets.
Anyways, I think that wraps everything up, and we'll leave it
Friday.
at that. Happy Friday, everyone.
TGIF.
Later, guys
and gals.
We don't have any yet.
I'm speaking very bad.